Xbox is on a roll, and at the developer direct, we got previewed a bunch of games. One of those games was South of Midnight. Now, South of Midnight is one of those games that I continue to go back and forth on. At first, I was like, I don't know. That doesn't look like it's for me. The art style, I don't know. It just doesn't look like it's for me. Then the developer direct, okay, I'm digging South of Midnight. The battle system there looks pretty cool. Those particle effects, of which I'm a sucker for. Those cheap tricks. Not that that's a cheap trick, but like you have particle effects in a game as you're fighting and you like do magic to a place, and I love it. I think it's so cool. And they had the developer direct there, and I was blown away. I was like, okay, I could get behind this game. This looks interesting. This looks cool. Now we have the previews, and we've got a bunch of previews, and I'm not going to lie. The previews have me questioning. I don't know. There are some big red flags here for the previews, and I want to go over today why I have these hesitations about South of Midnight. Now, South of Midnight, first of all, right up front, games and game tastes, completely subjective. What may be for you may not be for me. What is for me may not be for you. So completely subjective. Where I have red flags is we've had instances, and we're in 2025. And so unfortunately, I just don't know what to think from everyone. And it's very hard. I felt the same way about Dragon Age, Veilguard. It was like, something feels off here. I don't know what to think. And what you get, unfortunately, in the gaming space, which has popped up, is you have people with agendas. You have two sides. We've talked about this before in previous videos. You have two sides that dig in on agendas. Now, I'm not saying that anybody who's previewed this today is doing that. Not at all. But there are two sides on the internet that do dig in. You've got one side that thinks everything is woke, blah, 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 when it's clearly not. You got another side that also, that likes the woke, and yes, give it to me. And they both make up their minds, and they're all in for a game or all against a game based on those factors. None of that matters in my mind. All that matters is the game fun? However, those two sides do have an effect on how games are previewed and how they're reviewed in the cultural realm. And it does seem to me, just being honest here, I'm not criticizing anyone, but the reason I have red flags here is it does seem that that the previews I'm watching, for the most part, are focusing much more in on atmosphere, art style, and music than they are on gameplay. And that to me is just a red flag. Like, well, wait a minute. Gameplay is the main part of a video game. You play a game. Gameplay matters. And the fact that we're avoiding that, it seems like we're going out of our way sometimes here to avoid that. And when it is talked about, it's talked about like, it's the weakest link here in this game. So I hope South of Midnight, for the record, I hope it's successful. I hope it's interesting, and I hope it's fun. I think Xbox could use a game like that, even if the game isn't for me. The beauty about Game Pass and Xbox is it's about a catalog of games. And so if this game is for you, then more power to you. The purpose of this video, though, I do want to go over and just show you why I have some red flags here, why I have some pause on it, and hopefully to do that in a way that shows you like, hey, okay, I could see where he's coming from. There is some reasons to be, wait a minute, why aren't we talking about these things? But before we get into it, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. My name is X1 the Gamer. We cover gaming stuff all the time right here on this channel, and hopefully in a logical, reasonable way. Listen to me. If you disagree with me, whether it's on politics, whether it's in gaming, more power to you. I love you. I hope that you respect my opinion and disagree with me and tell me in the comments in a respectful way. That's what makes the world go round. If you think I'm racist for having these concerns, you're part of the problem. If you're like, yes, all right, X1, stick it to them because this game's just woke, then you are also part of the problem. I'm just telling you my thoughts here, my honest opinions in going through these previews. Why honestly, I just don't know. I don't know what to think, and I have some serious red flags here. So let's jump into it. The first one is from purexbox.com, and they have their preview. I didn't watch their video, but I read through their preview here. And again, this is what gave me my first like, well, wait a minute. They spend a lot of time on beauty. In fact, here in the first paragraph. Admittedly, though, the first thing that sunk its teeth into us was just how pretty this game is. And I will say, it is very pretty. I've seen the lighting effects in the gameplay as players have played through it, particularly the sun. When the sun comes on you and you're doing, it's a platformer as you're like jumping around and flying and stuff, using your magic. As the sun hits you, those lighting effects look really good. Technically, this is where I get paused. Like, it's these little sentences. Admittedly, though, you can see just how pretty this game is. Technically, it might not be the most advanced Xbox title out there, but boy, has Compulsion worked its magic in the art department. And so, a lot of the previews here are very much focused on art and music and then gameplay. And then gameplay seems to be the last thing that is focused on here. And that is honestly my red flag. In fact, in this whole thing, Pure Xbox really focuses right here. It's not until towards the end that they focus on combat, and then they give it one paragraph. And here they say you can tell that tackling enemies isn't the main focus of South of Midnight, and that's totally fine, but we're glad the game gets the job done pretty well, and these areas don't feel like stumbling blocks to the rest of the experience. There's a lot of difficulty options here too, letting you fine-tune the game's combat to your taste. Remember, for me, the combat was the appealing part in the developer direct. So there they say it's pretty decent, but then they finish their paragraph, and this is what gives me pause. It was actually their conclusion here, and maybe I'm overreading this. Let me know in the comments below if you think if I'm reading too much into this, but we're going to go over some other previews here that kind of do the same thing. Even in this short preview build, now Pure Xbox is wildly positive on this. Even on this pure preview build, South of Midnight has hugely impressed us already, even though I've not seen a lot of talk in this article on gameplay. So what's impressed them is the music, the art. They think it looks beautiful, the style. We knew Compulsion was capable of cocking up something good, but we did not expect to be this enamored with their latest title after just one chapter of playtime. So everybody, by the way, gets to play Chapter 3. Everyone says it takes about an hour to go through Chapter 3 here. Sure, and here's my problem. Remember, they were all in on, they're not all in, but they were pretty positive on combat in that previous paragraph. Sure, combat isn't necessarily the game's strong suit, but you never explained to me why it isn't. Like, you just vaguely went over it. And we have experienced a few technical hurdles in this preview, but everything else has blown our expectations out of the swampy water. It goes without saying that this is only a chunk of the experience, and we'll have to wait to see how the rest of it plays out, but we're desperate to go hands-on with the full game, and the wait for April 8th is going to be a long old slog. That is my concern there. There is just, that feels very, very... I don't know. There's just something about that sentence that doesn't read right. Again, it leaves me with the impression that we're avoiding talking about the gameplay, that we're avoiding talking about the mechanics, and we're focusing on these other very subjective things there. I mean, I guess gameplay is subjective as well, but that was my first red flag here. Now, I could be wrong. I could be reading too much into this, and maybe it's just the way I'm reading this that it hits me the wrong way. But let's go over to... Here is Mr. Matty Plays. Now, like I said, combat. And I'm going to keep it, instead of full screening these videos, I'm going to keep it in this because we're going to read some of the comments on some of these videos. So Mr. Matty Plays, here's what he has to say about combat. Let me make sure the volume is up on here. Okay, here we go.
Are you like the scrappy upstarter trying to find support somewhere? Like, you are a Microsoft-owned studio, and you've been cooking for a little bit of time now. We learned from the IGN preview that this was a sub 10-hour experience, and I bring that up because as I hopped into it, this is definitely a game that's designed to be more of an experience than a fun thing to play. There is gameplay, but it's more in the serviceable area, and I can...
Okay, did you hear that? It's more of an experience than a fun thing to play. Red flag number 2. That statement is now in fairness, I think what he's talking about is maybe this is more story with real time, quick time events, and it's more story based. That sounds like what he's saying there. And maybe that's why there's not a focus on gameplay. And if that's the case, great. I'm down for story games. Unlike some people don't like that at all. I like that actually. But again, it just leaves me... I'm just trying to illustrate why I have questions here. And it's stuff like that. Again, not talking about gameplay. When it is talked about, it's talked about in this manner. And his statement he made there.
As I hopped into it, this is definitely a game that's designed to be more of an experience than a fun thing to play. There is
more of an experience than a fun thing to play. Red flag number 2. Then we have Randall Thor. Randall Thor is really good. And again, I think all these guys are being honest in their reviews and stuff. Again, though, Randall Thor's focus here is primarily on music, primarily on the story that he likes, the art style, stuff like that. And here he starts to talk about combat. And let's see what he has to say about combat.
I'm very curious to see how combat progresses throughout the rest of the game. I believe within this hour, there was only 5 combat arenas, and I think one of them was optional. Like, you didn't have to do it unless you explored. So I'm curious to see, like, do I earn any more abilities? What sort of new skills do I get to make the combat more enjoyable? I definitely do feel like for a lot of people, combat is going to be the one sticking point. I didn't think it was great, but I also didn't think it was bad. It's just kind of in that, oh, this is good. It's just that everything else that the game does, I think, is top notch. From the cutscenes to the...
So again, when he talks about gameplay, i.e. combat here, it's not talked about in the best of terms, the most glowing of terms. And now what he says, and I wanted to pause there, because now what he says is everything else they do is really good. From the cutscenes... And in fact, let me rewind slightly here so we can listen to. And notice, everything he says here does not have to do with gameplay. Listen.
In that, oh, this is good. It's just that everything else that the game does, I think, is top notch. From the cutscenes to the setting, to the story, to the music, to the presentation. It's really top tier stuff.
None of that has to do with gameplay. None of that has to do with gameplay. And this is my red flags. Like, we're talking about the atmosphere, we're talking about, the South. This takes in the South. It's Gothic South folklore, which I think could be really cool. But the lack of gameplay, and maybe it's just the fact that this is what Mr. Matty Play says. This is more of a story experience, and so that's why gameplay isn't talked about. But nobody else has said that necessarily. They treat it as a platformer. And then refuse to talk about the gameplay or go out of their way and avoid talking about the gameplay. And when they do, they say it's not in the most glowing of terms. Everything else around it is glowing. And this is what leaves, again, I'm sorry. It makes me hesitant, and I don't know what to think here about this. If you disagree with me, please let me know. If you agree with me, let me know. Doesn't this give you some red flag, some pause? Anyways, like, guys, this preview... Like, everybody's raving about it, but there's a but there. And not everybody's raving about it. Well, let me say this. Those that are raving about it are not focusing on gameplay. Now, Colt Eastwood, who I wildly respect as well, and shout out to Randall Thor. Also, everybody we talked about today, I really respect. And think that they're honest. Randall Thor does a video, and Colt Eastwood does a preview video, and we're not going to go over it. It's like a 10-minute video, maybe just under 10 minutes, and he previews it as well. And he also, him especially, again, maybe I'm misreading him. It seems like he's going out of his way to avoid this. Now, with that, and I got the impression like, oh, it feels like he's trying to like the game. And maybe not. Again, I'm reading into it. It's just the way that I interpreted his take there. Could be wrong. I'm sure he's being honest with me. It's just me projecting my own issues into it. But then you come to Randall Thor, and here is his comment here on Randall Thor's video. Colt Eastwood who said the game was positive, says, bro, thank you so much for this. Talking with you about the preview really opened my eyes. So did you not like it? And then after you talked to Randall Thor, now you like it? Like, I'm very confused about this comment. I think this comment gives me more red flags. I played it again, and the second time was even better. I'm hopeful this will deliver. Again, this isn't a resounding, like, this game is going to be awesome. I'm hopeful this was better. I played it a second time. Talking to you about it really opened my eyes. Like, very questionable red flags. Now, someone who did, and again, keep in mind, fully recognize, tastes are subjective here. I'm just trying to illustrate, once again, why I have red flags about South of Midnight. Here's Destin Legary. Now, I'm going to play the first minute of his video. He did not like the game at all. Now, listen to what he focuses on in not liking the game. Hint, gameplay. Here we go.
Was kind enough to allow me the chance to play South of Midnight a little bit early, and unfortunately, I got to be honest with you. I do not think that this game is going to come together quite well. The main criticism that I have is that combat just doesn't feel good. You have pretty basic light attacks, you can push and pull things, you can freeze things in time, but I don't feel like the enemy combatants do a good job of telegraphing when you're supposed to be countering or dodging away from them. By the end of combat, I kind of get it, but it all just feels really, really clunky. Platforming is a little bit better. I'll get into that in just a second, but on the combat front, if this is the basis of the combat, I don't see it drastically improving later in the game, and I'm left just wondering why it's like this. And while I only got to play a small portion of the game, a lot of the game left me feeling that way. What?
And so there you go. There's Dustin Legary's take. Again, the only one that really puts first and foremost the gameplay aspect of it before then talking about the story, which he does say he enjoys and stuff like that. And so I'm just left, again, people that I trust. I felt the same way about Dragon Age Veilguard. People that I trust, differing opinions, but question marks. Question marks because of how the game is discussed, what it's talking about. Here's the thing. If Destin is right, and for the record, I did agree with Destin on his Dragon Age review. So him and I, as far as taste, I think line up, and that's the beauty of YouTube. That's the beauty of these independent creators and channels, is you can find someone that matches your taste, that matches your perspectives, and stuff like that. Go find them and follow them, and then I think it's superior to mainstream or traditional gaming media, and why traditional gaming media actually has a huge disadvantage. Again, to wrap things up here, I am left with red flags. I tweeted out, actually, let me pull up my Twitter here. There we go. Watching and reading all the South of Midnight previews, and something feels off. Everyone seems to be raving about visuals while tiptoeing around actual gameplay. The folks brave enough to discuss mechanics aren't exactly thrilled. I could be wrong, but personally, I think this is a red flag. We'll see. And that's where I'm at right now. In closing, I hope this game succeeds. I worry that the culture wars surrounding this game forces people to worry about how their previews are going to be taken and how their reviews are going to be taken. And if you criticize it or you don't criticize it, you're going to be seen as taking one extreme side or the other. I'm not taking any extreme side. This is how I feel. And I think that we should all expect honesty. And not that anybody that I'm talking to is dishonest or is even feeling that pressure. It's just something that I'm observing as an outsider looking in, as someone who didn't get a preview copy and watching what everybody else saying and trying to decide how this game is going to go. Now, here's the good thing, and here's the advantage that, for instance, a Dragon Age did not have. The game's on Game Pass, so you're going to be able to wait and see how it rolls out. If it turns out the game is amazing, great. The game is amazing. Everybody that said it is amazing, good for you. If it turns out that it's not, and everybody tries it out on Game Pass, then there's going to be some question marks. Why was everybody previewing it this way? Why was the focus on art and not on gameplay? It's going to be interesting to see how it falls out. Would love to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments below. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Who do you trust? What kind of reviews do you like? What kind of previews do you like? Do you like really long, in-depth ones? Do you like really short ones? Do you feel the red flag? Can you see? If you don't, can you at least see where I'm coming from? Let me know in the comments below. That'll wrap us up for today, guys. Love talking about Xbox. Love talking about gaming. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.